Hey everybody, this is Ben's Must-Have RV Gear, and I'm Ben from the Family Fulfillment Project. So I'm gonna have a long list of things to show you here today. This is basically all of my must-have gear for RVing, and I'm gonna separate it into needs and want. You just bought an RV, what accessories you're gonna need. So for my needs, I'm gonna have 5 items that you absolutely need to be able to RV. And number one is, if you just bought an RV, you're gonna need to have a hitch. So depending on what you have, whether it's a fifth wheel or a travel trailer, you're gonna need to use a hitch. I use a weight distribution hitch, and I definitely recommend that. But you need to do your own research on that, on what's the best setup for you. Number two, this is a very simple one, but very much a necessity, is a tire pressure gauge. Hopefully all of you have one of these already if you drive a car, so that you know what your tire pressure is. But this is a very simple $2 little thing, and make sure that you get a gauge that can actually read up to the PSI that your tires are going to need to go. For instance, my truck tires go up to 80 PSI, and I need to have a gauge that actually measures that. But this is an absolute must. Tire pressure must always be known, and that is very, very important to keep you safe on the road. And number three is going to be hoses. In order to hook up your RV, you're gonna need to have hoses. This is an NSF certified water only hose. This is just for my freshwater tank. That's all I use it for. I also have a couple of other accessory hoses, but you definitely need to have a hose. You also need to have a sewer hose, which I don't have because I'm using it right now. But you can check out my setup video if you want to see what sewer hose I use. You need to be able to have a sewer hose to dump or to hook up your trailer. And number 5 are tire chocks. Whenever you are unhitching your trailer or fifth wheel, you need to put something under your tires to make sure that they're not going to go anywhere. So those are the 5 needs that you absolutely have to have. The rest of the items on this list are all wants. They are things that in my eyes are necessities, but you don't have to have them to RV. So next on the list is another simple one. It is an adjustable wrench. There are all kinds of different things on your trailer, on your RV, that you're gonna need to adjust over time, and I don't have the space to have a whole wrench set that has 100 different wrenches. So get an adjustable one. I actually have 2 adjustable ones. That way if I have a bolt and a nut, I can just adjust them both, use them at the same time. Next one, having to do with water, is a water pressure regulator. A lot of the campsites' water is extremely pressurized, and some will actually be very, very hard on or break the internal parts of your RV. So get a water pressure regulator to make sure that you don't have troubles with that. Next on the list is a water filter. I like to actually drink the water that's coming out of my tap. And I know some people like to use, they like to just drink water bottles, but I definitely recommend getting a filter so that the water coming out of your tap is okay to use. Next one for setting up your sewage line is what I like to call a Stinky Slinky. This is to keep your sewage line off the ground and running in the correct direction. It makes life much, much easier so that you're not getting your flow going the wrong way. All right, next on the list is a temperature gun. I like to use this guy for reading the temperature on my tires. Whenever we stop at, say, a rest stop or pull over to use the bathroom, something like that, to make lunch, take a reading of the temperature of your tires to make sure that they're not overheating, because overheating tires is what ends up rupturing your tires. Next on the list is a cordless drill. This is my best friend. I keep my attachment on here for my stabilizers, and I use it every single time I bring my stabilizers up and down. This saves me probably 5 minutes every single time I set up and I take down. Very, very handy. I actually have another drill that I keep to use for other projects, just that I can keep this one solely for my stabilizers. This is also a very handy tool. This thing is like 15 years old. There's probably better ones out there, but getting a power adapter for your car is very, very handy. You can also use this in your trailer. Most trailers have like a car hookup that you can put these things in, and when you're not connected to power, then you can at least plug things in as long as they're not pulling too much power out. Very, very handy to have. Next on the list, this is also very important, leveling blocks. This really is arguably a need, but you don't absolutely have to have it to RV, but these leveling blocks I always use. If you are on a site that needs to be leveled out, these can basically, sorry, these are really dirty, I use them all the time. You can put these underneath your tires, drive the trailer up on top of them. You can stack them up. You know, they fit together like Legos. You can stack them up to make them taller if you want to. I also stack these underneath my stabilizers because a lot of times, actually the campsite we're in right now, I have to use these under the stabilizers or else my stabilizers won't actually hit the ground. So very, very handy tool to have. Okay, next on the list is tie downs. I have a couple of tie downs that I use all the time. I use them to hold down whatever I have strapped onto the back of the trailer, but very, very handy. Tie downs or bungee cords, something like that. You're pretty much always gonna have something that you're gonna need to tie down at some point. All right, next on the list is going to be a few different pieces, and those are electrical adapters. Not every single campsite that you come to is gonna have the right kind of power for your cord to hook up to. So I have a 30 amp trailer. It has a 30 amp cord coming out of it, but there's some places that we'll go to that'll only have 20 amp. There's some places that'll only have 40 amp. So I need to be able to adapt to those plugs for me to be able to connect to power. So I have a 40 amp plug conversion. So this goes from a 4-prong down to a 3-prong, which is gonna fit my trailer. I have a 20 amp conversion, so this is going to go from a 3-prong, just a regular outlet, to my 30 amp outlet. And then I use a surge guard. So this is a handy tool to put between your power source and whatever's coming out of your trailer, and this is going to tell you if the power that you're getting is safe to connect to your trailer. So this is going to tell you if there's no power working, if there's an open neutral, an open ground, reverse polarity, etc., etc. So it's not going to necessarily stop a surge if you get a surge from coming into the trailer, but this is at least going to tell you what's going on before you connect. Okay, next thing on my list is a very big one, and that is this guy right here, air compressor. There are some people that decide to RV without these and they just stop in at a gas station and use their air compressors if they need them. I tend to need this fairly often. Maybe it's because we travel from temperature zones quite a bit, but I use this guy regularly. This is a regular 20 amp style plug. So if I'm not connected to shore power, I can't use this. I have to be connected to some kind of power, but it is extremely handy. It goes up to 150 PSI, and you know, I use that regularly. Whenever my tires are getting a little low, put a little bit extra air in them. It's very, very handy to have. Okay. Next thing I want to talk about are extensions. Whenever you're at a new site, the power and water supplies are always going to be in different places, and you never quite know if you're going to have enough line to get to where your connections are. So I always carry extra. So I have a 25, is this a 25 foot? Yeah, I think it's a 25 foot 30 amp extension cord. So this connects to the cord that I use all the time. I have had to use it a couple times. It's come in handy for sure. I also have an extra freshwater line, and I have an extra sewage line. So I'm able to get basically within 50 to 60 feet of my trailer, I can connect to pretty much anything. Next one on the list are these handy dandy little guys. Everybody recognizes these. Get some disposable gloves. These are actually the last two that I have. I need to go to the store and buy another box. But disposable gloves are super handy because every time you set up and tear down, regardless of if you're actually using your black water tank or not, these are really nice to have so that you're not getting your hands filthy. You know, every single time I leave, I check my air pressure, and it always gets my hands filthy. So I throw in a couple of these guys, and they're good to go. Next on the list, get yourself a few nice heavy-duty plastic bins. I have 3 of them. I have one that's for my electrical stuff, one for my fresh water, one for my black water. And it's very handy to have everything. You know exactly what's in there. You just pull it out, do your thing, throw it back in there, and then you're not digging through your under compartment to try to find everything. So that's a very handy thing to have. The next one I gotta go grab Next one is a stepladder. This guy is very handy to have. You can pretty much always mount these onto the ladder on the back of your RV, but I use this basically every time that we leave to check the top of the slides to make sure that they don't have a bunch of debris in them, to get up on top of the awning, anything like that. So if you have a stepladder, I know there's actually a lot more compact ones than this that you can get that I would probably recommend because this thing's kind of bulky, but a stepladder is definitely a must for me. All right, couple things left on my list. This guy right here is my torque wrench. I would definitely recommend having one of these. It's an adjustable torque wrench, so I can check the torque on my lugs. I can also use this as a breaker bar if I have something that's really, really tight that I need to get off of there. I use this to change out my lugs. So very, very handy tool to have. I definitely recommend it to be able to make sure that all of your lugs are torqued down to the right setting, because that's very, very important. Okay, and the last item on the list we're actually going to take a little walk for because it's in use right now, and that is part of my water setup that I use every single time, and that is this guy right here. This is just a tiny little brass elbow, and this makes life so much easier when you're setting up your water supply, because this is going to take all of that pressure from a hose or from whatever you're connecting on here, and it's going to bring it downwards. So I hook up the elbow first, then I use my water filter, and then I use my, then I connect my hose to it. So I definitely recommend getting one of those. It's very handy to have. All right, so that's it. So that is your 5 absolute must-haves to be able to RV, plus all of my wants that are on my list. There's a whole bunch more gear that I have that I use regularly, but the things that I mentioned are things that are extremely important to me and that I wouldn't go RVing without. So I hope this was helpful. Please let me know if there's anything that you guys use that I missed that are very, very important to you, because who's not looking for ways to make RVing a little bit easier? I always appreciate those. So thanks very much for taking a look at our video today. Once again, we're the Family Fulfillment Project, and if you enjoyed the video, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, leave me a comment down below. I always love to hear where you guys are watching from, and we'll see you in the next video.